Hello everyone and welcome to another weekly recap. It is a new year, it is a new me, we got a new Overwatch League season and this offseason has continued to be spicy. There is a massive roster shakeup happening in multiple regions with the APAC sort of region, I would say, shrinking a little bit with all the China news and everything. That's really bolstered the Western region, and what that has done is it's really created this massive shakeup. We've already seen it with the Atlanta Reign, but since the signing window has been opened on December 23rd, there has been a lot of signings coming through. So we're going to go through them one by one, talk about everything we know so far. I'm not going to speak too much to rumors that have been going around and flinging around. There's so much official news that I don't think it's really necessary to talk about the rumors. So what do we know? Let's start at the top. Dallas Fuel, the last year's champs, have officially signed a new backline and really given us a look at what the roster is going to look like as well. So we got Sparkle, we got Hanbin, we got Edison. Those three guys are returning. There was a little bit of fear that these guys would be getting poached or going to other teams like we saw Fielder and Chio do, and Fearless as well. But they are returning with Coach Rush at the helm, which is a sigh of relief for the relief for the Dallas Fuel. But they did change the support line, and this has been controversial. Bliss is a great rookie main support coming from O2 Blast. They're one of the high prospects on that main support role, so it's a good addition for the Fuel. MCD is an interesting one, though. Big Goose, get out of here. No one wants to see the U-Launch team. MCD has had a pretty, I would say, just like mid-career, right? He's been around the block for a while. I think it was Hangzhou Spark that he started on. Started on Hangzhou Spark. Didn't really have incredible showings on that team. He's a solid player, but he ended up getting dropped from that team due to some not so good things that he said as part of the team. So he has that looming over his head. Then went to the Boston Uprising. Didn't really have any success on that team. He was sort of trading time with Crimzo. He was coming into play on like the Korean Boston Uprising squad, and he just didn't really perform that well. So it is an interesting signing that Rush picked up MCD. A consistent factor from MCD and Bliss is that Rush has worked with these guys on Element Mystic in the past. So you can kind of call it nepotism, but I think Rush just likes to work with players that he knows what he's getting into. And, you know, Dante and other people have come out and said that they believe and trust MCD to be able to get to that point. And I think MCD is almost, you know, a carbon copy of what I would say Edison is, you know. MCD's had some success just like Edison when he was on Atlanta Reign. No one really wanted him because he hadn't really had much success recently. And we all know how good Edison was in this most recent season, especially in the playoffs on that Sojourn. So maybe Rush can coach MCD into a place where he can just sort of have that success. Can he replace Fielder, one of the greatest flex supports to ever do it? I think many of us are saying probably not. But if he can hold his own, I think this will be a good roster. Once again, you can call me a Dallas Fuel hater. I think this roster is very good. Do I think that they are currently the favorites to go back-to-back and win the championship? Looking at some of these other rosters, I'm going to say no. But they can still add pieces. They can add pieces that can sort of solidify these types of things. How do they get a third DPS? I think that would go a long way. Maybe like a sniper hit scan could be really good, kind of like Hisu. But the rumors are that Shock might be going for that type of player. We'll see what Rush ends up going with. But it's still a good roster. I think this should be top 5. You know, anytime you have Rush at the helm, they should at least be top 5. How high is their ceiling right now? We'll have to wait and find out. So I'm excited to see where some of these other players are going to go to as well. You know, Doha is a free agent. He's such a good player. I'm glad he's off of the Dallas Fuel. He shares such a common hero pool with Sparkle that it feels like we don't get to see Doha play that much. So I'm excited to see who's going to take a risk on Doha as well. So we'll see. Moving onwards, let's go and talk about the Florida Mayhem. They've been making a bunch of signings, and Goomba and McGravy are going to be returning as the coaches for the Florida Mayhem. Obviously, very smart people. McGravy, smart player from when he was back, playing for the Los Angeles Valiant. He is now a coach. He's been doing great work. Goomba, as a head coach, he is a beautiful mind. He is just cooking something in his mind at all times. And he's always found success. So I'm excited to see what he can do again with this roster. And once again, well, I wouldn't say once again. This time he's actually had more access to great players because they've made some banging signings over the last little bit. So since the window opened, they've signed just today Cho Rong, who is Toronto Defiant main support, one of the highest paid players last year, incredible player. They've got him on the Lucio to come to Florida Mayhem. We know that they acquired Merritt a while ago, who was, I would say one of the best rookie hit scans that came into the league as well, especially on that Sojin. He had some phenomenal moments really helping the Houston Outlaws. So these are two great additions. Then they added Sauna, who is someone who I don't know much about. He is their 6th player filling it out. He is a flex DPS player. So now they have Checkmate, Merritt, and Sauna, who is a Finnish European flex DPS player. If you go to his profiles, just looking at here, he's a Tracer Genji Torbjorn is listed on his Wikipedia player. I'm going to be honest. I don't know much about this player at all. I don't watch a lot of European contenders, and when I do, I've usually watched the Team Peps, Ex Oblivione. I haven't watched much Young and Beautiful lately, so I don't really know what to expect. But every time Goomba scouts a player like this, it always seems to pay off in my eyes. Think of your RuPauls and your Sir Margeds from last year. Nobody knew who these players were. Someone was kind of off the radar as well, and we know how much impact he's had. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sauna did really well in trials. They probably did trials. They probably did, people trying out. He must have impressed Goomba, and he must have some source that makes him a prospect that gets picked over, a lot of other players, right? You think of Tracer Flex DPS players, Yaki is still on the market as far as where we're right now. Would you go for that known quantity? I don't know. So it's an interesting one. We'll see what Goomba has cooking. But this is a great roster. You got someone at the helm. We know how impactful everyone has said he has been for this team. Very communicative type of player. I don't know if that's a word, but he has a lot of energy. He brings a lot to the team. Him at the helm. You got some great additions who they're all very new to this league. This is almost everyone's second year in the league, other than Sauna, who it's his first, and Checkmate, where it's his third. I don't know if you can count his Checkmate's first year in the league as really being in the league. He played Reinhardt for the most part, but Florida Mayhem going to make waves again. I think this is easily middle of the pack team. How high can Goomba take this roster once again? Yaki is rumored to the Glads. That is true. Yaki is rumored to the Glads. Maybe Florida wanted him and couldn't get him. We'll see. As I said, I don't want to speak to rumors too much because there's so much to go. Look at how many tabs I have left. We got a lot of things to talk about. So, Boston Uprising. Last time I talked about this in a video, they had just announced their massive 6-man roster with all the legends back in the day. There was some skepticism, with me included, talking about this roster of there's a lot of veterancy. I'm just making up words, I feel like. There's a lot of veteran players on this roster, and I was a little worried that there would be a couple of holes, but they've actually bolstered it with Kalios, who is a great, off-tank player. He did a lot of good things to Washington Justice. He's always sort of gone under the radar, but he's been solid every time he's played. And then they added Twilight as the third support as well. So this roster as a whole is just stacked with players who have been around in this league forever. They're just adding another couple of rings to this roster. And I'm just excited to see what they're going to do. I'm gaining more confidence in this team the more I see it and the more I sort of brood on it. Because we talked about it on Plat Chat yesterday. There is a lot of volatility historically with these players. But can you really apply that to here? Yes. Regardless, it's going to be one of the most interesting teams to watch. They have some of the fan favorites of all time. You got the backline of Lee Jae-gon, Izayaki, and Twilight. That is crazy. If you said last year that was going to be their roster, you wouldn't even believe it. Just looking at all these players, all these faces on this roster, there's a lot to be excited about as a Boston fan. one thing we highlighted, and I think Johnny made this point on Plat Chat, is the real big concerning factor that you have to have is, can Dongsu as head coach keep these players in line? Dongsu has never been a head coach. He's a smart guy. I've worked with him when back in the Valiant. He had success on the Shanghai Dragons, but he's never been a head coach. And he has a lot of big names, big players on his roster. Is he going to be able to keep them grounded enough to be able to keep them performing and improving consistently time after time? Because on paper, this should be one of the best rosters that we have in this league. Can they translate that into the actual season? We'll have to wait and find out. But I'm excited to watch Boston next year. All right, let's keep it moving. Vegas Eternal. So Vegas Eternal have confirmed their roster. The players that we already knew were probably going to be returning. So we got Rack Attack. We got Luke Mino as the backline. I think a lot of people are excited for these two guys. Then we got Dove has been returning. I think Dove had some good moments. Good Tracer hit scan player. Didn't really get to show the best performances last year, but Paris Eternal players were in the worst situation you could ever hope. Malful is coming back as well, and they actually added Vulcan back into the sort of North American contenders players in a way. So Vulcan had a short stint with the New York Excelsior. Was that last year? I think it was last year, right? And he just never played. It was one of the strangest signings that we've ever seen in the Overwatch League. I think we can all agree. Made no sense. For that reason, he didn't play. He's finally going to be on a roster where he should be able to have some impact, should be able to make his presence known. So I'm excited for him to get another shot in this league. Vegas Eternal, still a lot of people questioning, are they going to be able to compete with the rest of the league, especially in the North American region? There is so many good players and good teams. These contenders players and North American contenders players are going to have to prove that they have what it takes to be able to compete at this level. Otherwise, it could be a little scary for them. So, it could be worse. Vegas Eternal, let me give, fans, let me give you a little bit of hope. You could be the New York Excelsior. Because the New York Excelsior, it has been rumored, obviously there was the big blow up recently where New York Excelsior were supposed to be trying to get a marginalized roster together. Sort of blew up in their face. Everyone said, this is a terrible idea. Don't just sign a whole marginalized roster. It's just going to be bad for everybody involved. Rumors are they are still trying to at least have marginalized roster in some way. It's not going to be a purely marginalized roster, but they're still trying to lean into trying to be inclusive in that way, trying to promote this. And, I think people are frustrated about this. This is the Overwatch League. This is the highest end of competition. These people want to be promoted to the league because they deserve it, because they should be there. It should not be kind of just sort of, just let them in to make us look better, or because we don't want to spend money on, other players. Like, this is a terrible idea. You have one of the biggest prospects of marginalized, players that we have in sort of the community of Aspen speaking about it as well. Our 2023 is a joke and they learn nothing. Whether they go half marginalized or full, what happened to the calling all hero suggestions? Not cool. These players don't deserve this. And that's what everyone's saying. Don't force someone into the Overwatch League. For the first time in almost ever, if you want to support marginalized, rosters, there is a calling all heroes. There is a place where those people can feel supported. You can give them reasons to compete in that. You can go win that. You can get notoriety that way. Or just put in a contenders roster. Do anything other than just shoehorning these people into the Overwatch League. I really hope this isn't true and this doesn't come to fruition, because New York Excelsior, you're losing respect and fans at a rapid rate right now. And it's just really sad to see, how it feels like they're so tone deaf to what the community is saying. It's not just, certain people. It's literally the people who are trying to be signed. They're trying to sign, speaking out against them, and they just still are not getting the hint. So, it just hurts my brain. On a happier note, Sugar Free, the 14-year-old gaming warlord, has finally come of age. This guy was dominating Rank Ladder when I was still a player, at the age of 14 or something like that. So big ups for Sugar Free. He's finally made it to the league. It's kind of unfortunate that he comes to the league when he's 18 and not when, the age was reduced to 17. But hey, you take this. Officially made it to the league on the Vancouver Titans. I don't think... How many players are on the Vancouver Titans now? What does the Vancouver roster look like? Let me pull it up real quick because I feel like I never know who's actually on this roster right now. They gained a lot of the old Boston Uprising that we talked about in our last video. So we got Aspire and Sugar Free as DPS. You got Punk as tank, Faith and Crimson as support. The roster looks pretty good, right? Like, in theory, I think this will be a pretty solid roster. They might struggle with the fact that the region has once again just gotten stronger, but I think they're building a cool team, and I think a lot of people are excited to see these guys perform, and the ceiling is quite high. I think if you can get Aspire, Punk, Crimzo, Sugar Free, if you get them firing on all cylinders, you get them good, you round out this roster a little bit. I would say maybe get a main tank just in case you don't want to fully invest in Punk. You can grab a third DPS almost, but I think Aspire and Sugar Free should cover most of it. Maybe you get another flex support. I don't know. You can do a lot of things with this roster, so I really like what they're cooking right now for the Vancouver Titans. Someone get Fraggy back? Nah, Fraggy's out there playing WoW. He's going back to his roots. Moving onwards to talk about, Jake has retired for what feels like the 5th time. I don't know. I feel like ever since 2018, every year we've had a thank you, Jake, at the end of the season. So they've officially parted ways again. Jake's has moved on. He said on stream that I think he wants to move into the talent team. We'll see what ends up happening with all of that. But, I'm sure whatever he wants to do, he'll be great at it. That's sort of what Jake does. So we'll see. But his Houston Outlaws career has come to a close. I'm not going to say forever because that's what we said last time and potentially the time before that. So we'll hold on to this one. But for this year, once again, Jake is not on the Houston Outlaws. Look out, he's coming for my job. Yeah, Jake's in my room with a rip tire and he's trying to blow up my talent career. That's what's happening right now. He's coming for my job. So, Jake, if you're out there, leave me alone. I'm just trying to get paid. So, let's move it on. This is a big news that happened hot off the press. This happened a few days ago. The Philadelphia Fusion have officially rebranded to the Seoul Infernal. They released a cool little video just today. Their original announcement was kind of strange. It was kind of like a PR statement more than anything. So it's cool that we finally get to see the video and what the logo looks like as a whole. There's been some back and forth of like whether or not you like the logo. I like the colors. I think it's cool if you look at it completely independently. But it looks like the Vancouver Titans logo. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It just looks like a red Vancouver Titans. So it's kind of frustrating for, Vancouver Titans and, to have two things so similar, but it is what it is. I don't blame the Philadelphia Fusion for moving to Seoul. They are run by T1, which is a South Korean organization. In esports, they are based out of Seoul. Obviously, they want to be in Seoul. Seoul's one of the biggest cities in South Korea. I don't mind that there's two Seoul teams. So that's not a big issue. It's sad to see Philadelphia Fusion, a massive brand since the beginning of the Overwatch League, sort of fade away and turn into something very different. So, rip to Philadelphia Fusion. They had a good run. They will forever be second in my heart as well. So now we'll get to see what this rebrand does. Maybe the curse will be broken. Maybe Seoul will be good in the APAC region. We don't know. We haven't heard anything about the roster so far. As far as we're aware, they still have MN3. They still have Zest on their roster, but they haven't bolstered any other players. And that's pretty consistent with the entire APAC region. People have been losing players and dropping players, but we haven't seen many rosters actually coming together. So let's talk about this because the APAC region is in a little bit of shambles, but there are positive signs coming at least. The Shanghai Dragons have re-signed the Moon onto the Shanghai Dragons. So obviously there was a massive explosion. They went dark for a while, but now they're finally coming back. This is really interesting to me because this is really the true test for Moon. A lot of people have said, he should be considered in the conversation with your rushes, with your crusties and that kind of stuff. How is Moon going to be able to build this roster? Because he lost all of his players. Almost every single one of his players, and the good players have been signed or they have retired. He lost almost his entire coaching staff, I'm pretty sure. So how is he going to rebuild this team from the ground up? He's likely going to have to go towards Korean contenders and buy a lot of those players. But also, the logistically, where are the Shanghai Dragons going to be performing out of? Are they going to just exist in South Korea? I would say that's likely with everything that's going on with China. So best of luck to Moon. He's got a hard task ahead of him. If he can pull this off, he absolutely deserves to be in the conversation with your Rushes and your Crusties, because that's what those guys have done so well. They've raised players up from... Oh, thank you. I got a coffee delivery. Big. Oh, no. We lost some sauce. Oh, no. But yeah, it's one of those things that Shanghai Dragons, we don't know what it looks like yet. And we don't know if maybe they're going to go budget in some way or form, but we just don't know yet. We really don't have any idea what's going on for Shanghai other than Moon is returning. So the other APAC team that we have a little bit of news on is the Hangzhou Spark. Hangzhou Spark, originally they dropped Alpha Yi, they dropped Irony. There's rumors that Alpha Yi is going to be playing for Washington Justice, I'm pretty sure. So there's rumors that, so Irony and Alpha Yi might be finding new homes. But just today, they actually released Pineapple and Super Rich. So I think it's disappointing to see Pineapple go. I think he had great performances every time he actually played on this roster. He sort of came in, played that Tracer, had high impact. Super Rich was always okay. I will forever remember his mini cups in the mid-season madness. He was just sipping that tea. But, Super Rich was never a massive standout to me for this roster. So we'll see what ends up happening to both of these players. They are Chinese players, so I don't know if there's a big market for Chinese players right now. So the only remaining players for the Hangzhou Spark right now is Guxue and Shai. So, I don't think those are bad two players to have in your roster. I'm always down to have Guxue and Shai. But how are they going to fill this out? What is even going to happen with the Hangzhou Spark? Where are they going to be competing out of? We don't have those answers yet. And I'm hoping that we can get answers on not just these teams, but the Overwatch League as a whole. It feels like right now there's a lot of questions with not a lot of answers coming out of how's the APAC region going to run? When does the league start? How is all this going to work with these two different regions? Big shrugs right now. So hopefully some communique coming out soon. But that's pretty much it. That's the TLDR of what has happened in the last 10, 11 days throughout the holidays. There are some spicy rumors going on around. Obviously, we've been talking about this so much, but it still has not officially come through. Toronto Defiant maybe picking up American Tornadoes. Glad's going in some strange directions. There's rumors that Yaki's getting picked up onto that team. The Washington team has been getting rumored. It's not just going to be Europeans. They're actually maybe adding some good Korean players as well, like Fitz, Alpha Yi. So we will see. We will see. Keep an eye out. Make sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to keep up to date with all those things and my horrendous takes. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Much love. I'll see you guys soon.